A loving family's trust shattered in an instant. Hidden cameras reveal a nanny's horrifying secret. What would you do if you discovered your children's caretaker was secretly abusing them? This is the true story of one family's nightmare, and how they fought back. Meet the Williams family: Marcus, a dedicated software engineer, and Tanya, a passionate elementary school teacher. Their children, 7-year-old Zoe and 5-year-old Caleb, fill their home with laughter and energy. A typical day for the Williams starts early, with Tanya preparing breakfast while Marcus helps the kids get ready for school. As they rush out the door, juggling backpacks and briefcases, the morning chaos is a familiar scene. After school, it's a whirlwind of homework, extracurricular activities, and trying to squeeze in quality family time. With both parents working full-time, the evenings often feel too short as they struggle to manage household chores and spend meaningful moments with their children. Recognizing the strain on their family life, Marcus and Tanya made the difficult decision to hire a nanny. They hoped this would allow them to focus more on their careers while ensuring their children received the attention and care they deserved. The idea of bringing someone new into their home filled them with a mix of excitement and apprehension. As they began their search, the Williams were determined to find someone who would be more than just a caretaker. They wanted a positive role model who could enrich their children's lives and support their family values. Tanya spent hours researching childcare options, while Marcus created a detailed list of questions for potential candidates. Their vetting process was meticulous. They conducted thorough background checks, called multiple references, and arranged for extended interviews. Each potential nanny spent time with the family, allowing Zoe and Caleb to interact with them while the parents observed. The Williams paid close attention to how candidates engaged with their children, looking for someone who could balance fun with structure and educational activities. Throughout the process, Marcus and Tanya had lengthy discussions about their expectations and concerns. They wanted to ensure they were on the same page and that their chosen nanny would align with their parenting style. They created a detailed job description, outlining responsibilities and setting clear boundaries. After weeks of searching, the Williams finally felt they had found the perfect fit. As they prepared to welcome their new nanny into their home, a sense of optimism filled the air. They believed they had made the right choice for their family, one that would bring balance to their hectic lives and provide their children with exceptional care. Little did they know that their careful planning and hopeful expectations were about to be shattered in ways they could never have imagined. The arrival of Sarah Thompson marked a turning point for the Williams family. At first, she seemed like the answer to their prayers. But as the saying goes, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. How long would it take for the cracks in Sarah's perfect facade to show? Sarah Thompson walked into the Williams home with a warm smile and a firm handshake. Her resume was impressive: a degree in early childhood education, years of experience with families of various backgrounds, and a list of certifications in child safety and development. The references she provided spoke glowingly of her professionalism, creativity, and genuine care for children. During her first week, Sarah demonstrated why she had come so highly recommended. She arrived early each morning, greeting Marcus and Tanya with a cheerful demeanor that seemed to brighten the usual morning rush. With Zoe and Caleb, she was patient and attentive, helping them get ready for school without the usual fuss. Sarah's interactions with the family were a perfect blend of warmth and professionalism. She listened intently as Marcus and Tanya explained their routines and preferences, taking careful notes and asking thoughtful questions. When Zoe shyly showed Sarah her favorite stuffed animal, Sarah engaged her in a conversation about its name and backstory, immediately putting the young girl at ease. The Williams were particularly impressed by how quickly Sarah adapted to their family's rhythms. She seamlessly integrated into their after-school routine, having healthy snacks ready when the children returned and creating a calm environment for homework. Sarah even anticipated potential issues, like Caleb's tendency to procrastinate on his reading assignments, and developed strategies to keep him on track. Zoe and Caleb's initial hesitation around their new nanny quickly gave way to excitement. Sarah had a knack for turning everyday activities into adventures. She introduced a points system for completing chores, turning mundane tasks into a fun competition between the siblings. During playtime, Sarah suggested creative games that were both entertaining and educational, like a scavenger hunt that incorporated math problems and spelling challenges. As the days passed, Marcus and Tanya found themselves relaxing into their new routine. They no longer felt the constant stress of rushing home, knowing their children were in capable hands. Sarah's presence allowed them to focus more on their work during the day and enjoy quality family time in the evenings. One Friday evening, as Sarah was preparing to leave, Tanya noticed a colorful chart on the refrigerator. Sarah explained it was a weekly meal planner she had created with the children, incorporating their favorite healthy foods and introducing new recipes for them to try together. It was a small gesture, but one that highlighted Sarah's thoughtfulness and commitment to the family's well-being. As they closed the door behind Sarah that night, Marcus and Tanya exchanged a look of relief and gratitude. They felt confident in their choice, believing they had found not just a nanny, but a valuable addition to their family. Little did they know that beneath Sarah's perfect exterior, a darkness was lurking, waiting to reveal itself in the most horrifying way. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to discover a horrifying truth? For the Williams family, their faith in Sarah was about to be shattered in ways they could never have imagined. As the first month unfolded, Sarah Thompson seamlessly integrated into the Williams family's daily life. Each morning, she arrived punctually, often a few minutes early to help with the breakfast rush. Sarah's competence shone through as she efficiently packed school lunches, double-checking that Zoe had her math homework and Caleb remembered his show-and-tell item after school. Sarah's nurturing side emerged. She'd greet the children with healthy snacks and engage them in conversations about their day. When Zoe struggled with a difficult spelling assignment, Sarah patiently guided her through it, using memory tricks that had Zoe giggling and learning simultaneously. For Caleb's upcoming science project, Sarah helped him research and gather materials, turning it into an exciting exploration rather than a chore. The children's positive feedback about their new nanny reassured Marcus and Tanya. Zoe proudly showed off the intricate friendship bracelet Sarah had taught her to make, while Caleb couldn't stop talking about the backyard scavenger hunt Sarah had organized, complete with educational clues and small prizes. Sarah's ability to anticipate the family's needs was uncanny. She noticed Tanya often forgot her lunch in the morning rush and began preparing an extra sandwich just in case. When Marcus mentioned an upcoming late-night work project, Sarah offered to stay overnight, ensuring the children's routine wouldn't be disrupted. As the weeks passed, Marcus and Tanya found themselves relying more heavily on Sarah. Her willingness to go above and beyond didn't go unnoticed. She stayed late without complaint when traffic delayed Tanya's return from work and came in early when Marcus had an important breakfast meeting. Sarah's flexibility allowed the parents to navigate their demanding careers with less stress and guilt. Small, thoughtful gestures became Sarah's trademark. She surprised the family by organizing their overflowing pantry one afternoon, creating a simple system that even Caleb could follow. When she learned of Tanya's fondness for lavender, Sarah gifted her with a small potted plant for her office. These acts of kindness further endeared her to the Williams family. As the first month drew to a close, Marcus and Tanya sat down to reflect on the positive changes in their household. The constant tension they'd felt trying to balance work and family life had eased considerably. They marveled at how Sarah had become an integral part of their daily routine, bringing a sense of calm and organization to their once chaotic home. Grateful for finding such an exceptional nanny, they decided to surprise Sarah with a small bonus and a heartfelt thank you note. As Tanya penned the words of appreciation, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had made the right choice, she thought, unaware that behind Sarah's perfect facade lurked a darkness that would soon shatter their newfound peace. As Tanya finished writing her note of gratitude, a chill ran down her spine. She brushed it off as a draft, but deep down, her maternal instincts were desperately trying to warn her. What subtle changes would soon shatter the Williams' picture-perfect family life? The first signs were almost imperceptible. Zoe, once bubbly and talkative, began retreating into herself. At dinner, she picked at her food silently, offering only one-word responses when asked about her day. Her colorful drawings, which used to cover the refrigerator, became sparse and muted. Tanya noticed Zoe's reluctance to share stories about her time with Sarah, a stark contrast to her initial excitement. Caleb's changes were more pronounced. Night terrors began plaguing his sleep, with the young boy waking up in tears, calling for his parents. During the day, he clung to Marcus and Tanya, becoming distressed when they prepared to leave for work. His usual independence gave way to a neediness that puzzled and concerned his parents. Both children exhibited a newfound reluctance to be left alone with Sarah. Where they once eagerly waved goodbye to their parents, they now lingered, finding excuses to delay the inevitable. Zoe would suddenly remember an important school form that needed signing, while Caleb insisted on one more hug, his little arms wrapped tightly around his mother's legs. Subtle flinches and nervous glances didn't escape Marcus and Tanya's notice. When Sarah spoke a bit too loudly or moved too quickly, the children tensed visibly. During a family movie night, Caleb startled dramatically at a mild jump scare, burrowing into Tanya's side with unusual intensity. Zoe's eyes darted anxiously toward Sarah whenever the nanny entered a room, a flicker of unease crossing her young face. Marcus and Tanya discussed these changes in hushed tones after the children were asleep. They cycled through possible explanations. Perhaps it was a phase, or stress from school, or even just the natural ups and downs of childhood. Yet a nagging feeling persisted, an unshakable sense that something wasn't quite right. Attempts to uncover the source of their children's distress led nowhere. When questioned gently about their time with Sarah, Zoe and Caleb's answers became vague and evasive. "It's fine," Zoe would mumble, suddenly fascinated by a loose thread on her sleeve. Caleb would shrug, his usual chatterbox nature replaced by an uncharacteristic silence. One evening, as Tanya tucked Zoe into bed, she noticed a small bruise on her daughter's arm. When asked about it, Zoe's eyes widened momentarily before she quickly dismissed it as a playground accident. The explanation seemed plausible, but something in Zoe's voice didn't ring true. Despite the growing unease, Marcus and Tanya found themselves dismissing their concerns. Sarah's professional demeanor remained impeccable, her reports of the children's days always positive and detailed. They reminded each other of Sarah's stellar recommendations and their initial relief at finding such a capable nanny. Yet as they turned out the lights each night, a shadow of doubt lingered, whispering that perhaps all was not as it seemed in their once peaceful home. In the still of night, whispered concerns grew louder. Marcus and Tanya faced a parent's worst nightmare, reconciling outward appearances with a gnawing suspicion that their children were in danger. How far would they go to uncover the truth? Late one evening, after the children were asleep, Marcus and Tanya sat at the kitchen table, voices low as they shared their growing unease. "I can't shake this feeling that something's off," Tanya confessed, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug of tea. Marcus nodded, his brow furrowed with concern. "Zoe's not herself, and Caleb's nightmares are getting worse. We need to figure out what's going on." Their attempts to address these issues with Sarah had been met with a wall of defensiveness. When Tanya casually asked about a scratch on Caleb's cheek, Sarah's response was immediate and rehearsed. "Oh, he tripped over his shoelaces at the park. You know how clumsy he can be." Her tone was light, but her eyes held a flicker of something that made Tanya uneasy. Sarah had explanations for everything. Zoe's quietness was attributed to a fallout with a school friend. Caleb's clinginess was dismissed as a phase all children go through. Each answer seemed plausible on its own, but taken together, they formed a pattern that didn't sit right with Marcus and Tanya. The internal conflict was tearing them apart. On one hand, Sarah's references had been impeccable, and her work ethic was undeniable. On the other, their children's well-being was at stake. The thought that they might be failing to protect Zoe and Caleb was unbearable. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Marcus and Tanya began altering their schedules. Tanya started working from home one day a week, while Marcus took long lunch breaks to check in unexpectedly. They hoped to catch a glimpse of Sarah's true behavior when she thought no one was watching, yet every time they dropped in, Sarah was the picture of professionalism. They'd find her engaged in educational activities with the children, the house tidy and meals prepared. It was as if she had a sixth sense for their arrivals, always one step ahead. This perfection only fueled their frustration. Are we just being paranoid? Marcus wondered aloud one night, pacing the bedroom. Tanya sat on the edge of the bed, her voice tight with emotion. I don't know, but I can't ignore how the kids are acting. We're missing something, I'm sure of it. As days turned into weeks, the tension in the household grew. Marcus and Tanya felt like detectives in their own home, analyzing every interaction, every offhand comment from their children. They were exhausted, constantly second-guessing themselves and each other. Finally, after another night of Caleb's tears and Zoe's silence, they reached a breaking point. We need to know what's happening when we're not here, Tanya said firmly. Marcus met her gaze, understanding the weight of what she was suggesting. With heavy hearts but resolute determination, they agreed it was time to take more drastic measures to uncover the truth that seemed to be hiding just out of reach. We need to know what's happening when we're not here, Tanya had said. Those words echoed in Marcus's mind as he stared at the laptop screen, his finger hovering over the purchase button. The item in his cart. A set of hidden cameras that would either confirm their worst fears or put their minds at ease. Marcus and Tanya spent hours researching different surveillance options, comparing features and reading reviews. They settled on small, wireless cameras that could be easily concealed in common areas of their home. As they discussed the technical details, a heavy silence fell between them. Are we really doing this? Tanya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The moral implications weighed heavily on both of them. They had always valued trust and privacy in their home, and the idea of secret surveillance felt like a violation of those principles. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, sighing deeply. I don't like it either, but what choice do we have? The kids are suffering, and we need to know why. They debated back and forth, wrestling with their conscience. In the end, their parental instincts won out. Protecting Zoe and Caleb had to take precedence over their discomfort. With their decision made, they meticulously planned the camera placement. They chose locations that would provide the best coverage of the living room, kitchen, and playroom, areas where Sarah spent most of her time with the children. They were careful to avoid bedrooms and bathrooms, drawing a line at that level of intrusion. The night they set up the cameras was filled with tension. Every creak of the floorboards made them freeze, afraid Sarah might somehow sense what they were doing. Marcus's hands shook slightly as he positioned each device, while Tanya kept watch, her heart racing. As they activated the final camera, a mix of dread and anticipation settled over them. Now came the hardest part, waiting. They knew it might take days to capture any conclusive evidence, if there was any to be found at all. The next morning, as Sarah arrived for work, Marcus and Tanya struggled to act normal. Every smile felt forced, every casual conversation a performance. They were hyper-aware of their behavior, afraid of giving away their secret. Throughout the day, they found themselves constantly checking their phones, where they could access the live feeds. Each notification made their stomachs lurch, wondering if this would be the moment that changed everything. As evening approached and Sarah prepared to leave, Marcus and Tanya exchanged a loaded glance. Soon, they would review the day's footage. The anticipation was almost unbearable. Would they find the answers they were seeking, or would they be left with more questions? Tanya's hand trembled as she reached for the laptop. Marcus squeezed her shoulder gently, a gesture of support and shared anxiety. As they sat down to watch, they were filled with a conflicting mix of emotions, hope that their children were safe, dread of what they might discover, and a grim determination to face whatever truth awaited them. As the video began to play, Marcus and Tanya leaned forward, eyes fixed on the screen. What they saw in those first few minutes seemed perfectly normal. But appearances can be deceiving, and the truth that was about to unfold would shatter their world in ways they could never have imagined. The footage started innocently enough. Sarah helped Zoe with her homework while Caleb colored nearby. She prepared snacks, read stories, and played games with the children. Marcus and Tanya exchanged puzzled glances, their earlier suspicions seeming unfounded. Then, without warning, Sarah's demeanor shifted. As Zoe struggled with a math problem, Sarah's patience evaporated. She snatched the pencil from the girl's hand, her voice rising sharply. "Are you stupid? It's simple addition." The sudden change in tone made Marcus flinch, his hand instinctively reaching for Tanya's. What followed was a barrage of verbal abuse that left the parent stunned. Sarah berated the children for every minor mistake or perceived shortcoming. Her words cut deep, laced with cruelty and racist undertones. "You'll never amount to anything," she spat at Caleb. "Just another worthless black kid." The physical abuse began subtly, a rough grab of an arm, a sharp push. But as the footage progressed, Sarah's actions grew more violent. She threw a book at Zoe, barely missing her head. When Caleb spilled his juice, Sarah yanked him by the hair, forcing him to clean it up while calling him racial slurs. Tanya covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face as she watched Sarah force-feed Caleb his vegetables, nearly choking the boy. Marcus's hands clenched into fists, his body shaking with rage and helplessness as he witnessed Sarah slap Zoe across the face for speaking out of turn. The abuse escalated with each passing clip. Sarah locked the children in dark closets as punishment, ignoring their terrified cries. She threatened them with worse if they ever told their parents, her voice dripping with malice. "Who do you think they'll believe? A respected nanny or a couple of lying nigger brats?" As the full extent of their children's trauma became clear, Marcus and Tanya's emotions overwhelmed them. Anger at Sarah's betrayal, guilt for not seeing the signs sooner, and fear for their children's well-being crashed over them in waves. "How could we have let this happen?" Tanya sobbed, burying her face in her hands. Marcus wrapped his arms around her, his own tears falling freely. "We trusted her. We brought her into our home," he whispered, his voice breaking. The laptop screen continued to flicker with scenes of abuse, each one driving home the horrifying reality of what their children had endured. Marcus and Tanya sat in stunned silence, the weight of their discovery pressing down on them. They knew their lives would never be the same, and the road ahead would be long and painful. But one thing was certain, they would do whatever it took to protect their children and ensure justice was served. The revelation of Sarah's abuse left Marcus and Tanya reeling, but the true test of their strength was yet to come. How would they confront the monster who had terrorized their children? The next few hours would push them to their limits and reveal the depths of their resolve. Marcus paced the living room, his hands shaking with a mix of rage and fear. Tanya sat on the edge of the couch, her eyes red from crying but now filled with determination. They spoke in hushed, urgent tones, acutely aware that Zoe and Caleb were just upstairs. "We need to confront her tonight," Marcus said firmly. "I can't let her near our children for one more second." Tanya nodded in agreement, her voice steadier than she felt. "But we have to be smart about this. We can't let our emotions take over." They quickly formulated a plan. They would wait for Sarah to arrive for her evening shift, then confront her with the evidence before she could interact with the children. Tanya would stay upstairs with Zoe and Caleb, keeping them safe and distracted, while Marcus dealt with Sarah downstairs. Marcus reached for his phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he dialed. "John. It's Marcus. I need your help, man. It's about the kids." He quickly explained the situation to his friend, a police officer he'd known since college. John's calm, professional voice on the other end helped steady Marcus's nerves as they discussed the legal implications and next steps. Upstairs, Tanya gathered Zoe and Caleb in their room, her heart breaking as she looked at their innocent faces. She forced a smile, suggesting they have a special movie night in their pajamas. As she helped them change and set up the movie, she hugged them tightly, whispering reassurances. "Mommy and Daddy love you so much. You're safe now, I promise." The minutes ticked by agonizingly slow. Marcus stood by the window, watching for Sarah's car, his body tense like a coiled spring. Tanya joined him after ensuring the children were settled, squeezing his hand in silent support. When Sarah's familiar sedan pulled into the driveway, Marcus took a deep breath, steeling himself for the confrontation. Tanya kissed him quickly before hurrying back upstairs. "Remember, stay calm, she whispered. We have the evidence. We have the truth. Marcus opened the front door, forcing his face into a neutral expression as Sarah approached. She smiled brightly, completely unaware of the storm that was about to break. Good evening, Mr. Williams, she chirped, stepping inside. How was your day? Marcus closed the door behind her, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Sarah, we need to talk. Please, have a seat in the living room. As Sarah's smile faltered, confusion crossing her face, Marcus felt a grim satisfaction. The mask was about to come off, and justice for his children was finally within reach. Have a seat, Sarah. For simple words that would change everything. Marcus stood before the nanny, his calm exterior masking a storm of emotions. How does one confront pure evil face to face? Sarah sank into the armchair, her brow furrowed in confusion. The air in the living room felt thick with tension. Marcus took a deep breath, steadying himself before speaking. Sarah, we need to discuss something important. It's about your interactions with our children. Sarah's face remained neutral, but her eyes darted nervously around the room. Of course, Mr. Williams. Is everything all right? Have the children said something? Marcus leaned forward, his voice low and controlled. We've noticed some changes in Zoe and Caleb's behavior recently. They've been withdrawn, anxious. We were concerned, so we decided to investigate. Sarah's posture stiffened slightly, but her voice remained steady. I'm not sure I understand. The children have been perfectly fine with me. Perhaps they're just going through a phase. Marcus shook his head slowly. We have evidence that suggests otherwise, Sarah. We've seen what you do when we're not here. Sarah's eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing her face before she regained composure. Mr. Williams, I assure you, I've done nothing wrong. If the children have said something, they must have misunderstood or exaggerated. You know how kids can be. Without a word, Marcus turned his laptop toward Sarah and pressed play. The screen came to life, showing footage of Sarah screaming at Zoe, her face contorted with rage. Sarah's mouth fell open, her facade crumbling as she watched herself on the screen. This is just the beginning, Marcus said, his voice trembling with barely contained anger. We have hours of footage showing your abuse. The racist slurs, the physical violence, all of it. Sarah's demeanor shifted dramatically. The mask of professionalism fell away, replaced by a twisted snarl. You had no right to film me, she hissed. Those brats deserved everything they got. Someone needs to teach them their place in this world. Marcus stood up abruptly, his fists clenched at his sides. Their place. They are children, Sarah. Innocent children who trusted you. How dare you lay a hand on them, how dare you poison their minds with your hatred. Sarah lunged forward, her voice rising to a shriek. You think you're so much better than me? You're nothing but a dash. Her words were cut short by the sound of the front door opening. John, Marcus's police officer friend, stepped into the room, his presence immediately commanding attention. Sarah Thompson, he said firmly, I'm going to need you to come with me. We have some questions for you down at the station. As John led a seething Sarah away, Marcus sank back into his chair, the weight of the confrontation finally hitting him. The battle was far from over, but the first step toward justice had been taken. Upstairs, he could hear the faint sounds of Tanya comforting their children. They had a long road ahead, but they would face it together, as a family. The Williams family had taken the first step, but the path to justice is rarely a straight line. What unexpected challenges would they face as they navigated the complex legal system? As Marcus and Tanya soon discovered, confronting evil was only the beginning of their ordeal. The process of filing a formal police report was more arduous than Marcus and Tanya had anticipated. They spent hours at the police station, recounting every detail they could remember from the surveillance footage. Detective Lisa Ramirez, a seasoned officer specializing in child abuse cases, listened intently, her face a mask of professional calm as she documented their statement. The next day, Zoe and Caleb were interviewed by child psychologists at a specialized center. Marcus and Tanya watched through a two-way mirror, their hearts breaking as their children hesitantly described Sarah's abuse. The specialists used gentle questioning techniques and play therapy to help the children open up, but the process was emotionally draining for everyone involved. Evidence gathering became a full-time job for the Williams family. They provided the police with copies of the surveillance footage, Sarah's employment contract, and any communication they had with her. Forensic teams combed through their home, collecting physical evidence that could corroborate the video footage. A meeting with their lawyer, Jonathan Chin, laid out the long road ahead. Chin explained the legal options available, from pressing criminal charges to pursuing a civil lawsuit. He didn't sugarcoat the challenges they would face, warning that cases like these could be emotionally taxing and often took months, if not years, to resolve. The emotional toll of reliving the abuse through legal channels was immense. Tanya found herself waking up in cold sweats, the images from the footage haunting her dreams. Marcus struggled with guilt, questioning how he could have missed the signs for so long. They enrolled in therapy, both individually and as a family, to help process their trauma. As news of Sarah's arrest spread, the Williams family was surprised by the outpouring of support from their community. Neighbors organized meal trains, friends offered to watch the children during legal meetings, and Tanya's co-workers pooled together to hire a cleaning service for the family. This network of support became a lifeline, providing moments of respite in the storm of legal proceedings. After much deliberation and consultation with their lawyer, Marcus and Tanya made the difficult decision to press charges and seek full prosecution. They knew the process would be challenging, but they were determined to see justice served and to prevent Sarah from harming other children. As they prepared for the upcoming legal battle, the Williams family clung to each other for strength. They established new routines, focusing on rebuilding trust and creating a safe environment for Zoe and Caleb. With each passing day, they steeled themselves for the challenges ahead, knowing that the fight for justice had only just begun. While the adults prepared for courtroom confrontations, Zoe and Caleb faced a more personal struggle. Their minds had become battlegrounds, scarred by betrayal and abuse. But in the gentle hands of an expert, these wounded children would embark on a remarkable transformation, one that would challenge everything their parents thought they knew about healing. Dr. Amelia Foster, a child psychologist specializing in trauma, entered the Williams family's life like a calm in the storm. Her office, with its soft lighting and walls adorned with colorful artwork, became a sanctuary for Zoe and Caleb. In those initial sessions, the children's pain was palpable. Zoe, once vivacious, sat silently, her eyes downcast. Caleb alternated between bouts of aggression and periods of withdrawn silence. Dr. Foster employed a variety of techniques tailored to each child's needs. For Zoe, art therapy provided a nonverbal outlet for her emotions. Her early drawings, filled with dark colors and chaotic lines, gradually gave way to brighter hues and more structured images. Caleb found solace in play therapy, using action figures to act out scenarios that he couldn't yet put into words. Breakthroughs came in small, precious moments. During a sand tray session, Zoe carefully placed a tiny figure representing herself behind a wall of blocks, then hesitantly added a larger figure she identified as her mother on the other side. It was a powerful representation of her fear and desire for protection. Caleb, during a particularly intense play session, finally verbalized his anger at Sarah, shouting at a doll that represented her. Marcus and Tanya played crucial roles in their children's recovery. They attended family therapy sessions, learning new ways to communicate and rebuild trust. At home, they implemented strategies suggested by Dr. Foster, creating a consistent routine that provided security and predictability for Zoe and Caleb. The family dynamics shifted as they navigated this new terrain together. Family game nights, once a source of laughter, now sometimes ended in tears as triggers were unexpectedly hit. But there were also moments of profound connection, like when Zoe crawled into Marcus's lap during a thunderstorm, seeking comfort instead of hiding alone as she had done in the weeks following the abuse. Progress was not linear. There were days when it seemed like they had taken 2 steps back for every step forward. Caleb's nightmares returned with a vengeance after a particularly difficult therapy session. Zoe had a meltdown at school when a teacher raised her voice, echoing Sarah's angry tones, yet, amidst the setbacks, signs of resilience emerged. Caleb started to stand up for himself on the playground, no longer the easy target he had become. Zoe's smile, absent for so long, made tentative appearances during family meals. In a moment that brought tears to Tanya's eyes, Zoe picked up her neglected sketchbook and began to draw again, creating a picture of her family holding hands. As the weeks turned into months, the Williams family found a new rhythm. The road to recovery stretched out before them, long and winding, but no longer shrouded in darkness. In the laughter of their children, once muted but now growing stronger each day, Marcus and Tanya found hope for the future. As the Williams family took tentative steps towards healing, a storm was brewing beyond their four walls. What began as whispers of disbelief would soon erupt into a community-wide reckoning, forever changing the landscape of childcare in their town. The news of Sarah Thompson's arrest spread rapidly through the neighborhood. Shocked neighbors gathered in small groups on front lawns, their hushed conversations a mix of horror and disbelief. "How could this happen here?" became a common refrain. The Williams' next-door neighbor, Mrs. Chen, recalled the times she had waved to Sarah as she arrived for work, never suspecting the evil lurking beneath the nanny's friendly smile. As the full extent of Sarah's abuse came to light, the community's initial shock gave way to a powerful wave of support for the Williams family. A meal train organized by Tanya's co-workers ensured the family had home-cooked dinners for weeks. The local PTA set up a fund to help cover the children's therapy costs. Even strangers, moved by the family's plight, sent cards and small gifts to show their solidarity. The incident sparked intense discussions about childcare safety throughout the community. Parents gathered at school meetings and coffee shops, sharing tips on vetting caregivers and recognizing signs of abuse. The local library hosted a series of workshops on child safety, featuring experts in psychology and law enforcement. As media coverage of the case grew, other families in the area began to come forward with their own stories of suspected abuse. Some had dismissed their concerns, while others had been too afraid to speak up. The Williams' courage in confronting Sarah had opened a floodgate of suppressed fears and suspicions. Community leaders took action, launching initiatives to raise awareness about child abuse. The mayor announced the formation of a task force to review childcare regulations. Local businesses displayed posters with hotline numbers for reporting suspected abuse. The school district implemented new training programs for teachers and staff on recognizing signs of maltreatment. The case attracted national media attention, with news vans becoming a common sight in the quiet suburban neighborhood. While the scrutiny was often overwhelming for the Williams family, they recognized the importance of sharing their story. In a poignant interview with a local news station, Marcus and Tanya spoke about the importance of trusting parental instincts and the need for greater vigilance in protecting children. As the legal proceedings against Sarah Thompson continued, the Williams family found themselves thrust into the role of reluctant advocates. They spoke at community events, sharing their experience to help other parents protect their children. Tanya started a support group for families affected by abuse, providing a safe space for healing and discussion. The community's united front in supporting the Williams family and seeking justice became a powerful force for change. What had begun as a private nightmare had transformed into a rallying cry for child safety. As Marcus and Tanya watched their neighbors come together, they felt a glimmer of hope. Their ordeal had exposed a hidden darkness, but it had also revealed the strength and compassion of their community, ready to stand with them in the fight for justice and healing. While the community rallied around them, Marcus and Tanya Williams now entered a world few are prepared for, the labyrinth of the criminal justice system. How would they navigate the treacherous waters of depositions, legal strategies, and courtroom testimony? The Williams family sat in a sterile conference room at the prosecutor's office, surrounded by stacks of documents and legal paths. Assistant District Attorney Rachel Patel walked them through the case strategy, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the family's nervous energy. Marcus gripped Tanya's hand as they listened to the timeline of events that would be presented in court. The most challenging part of the preparation came when Zoe and Caleb gave their depositions. Child psychologists were present to support them, but nothing could fully shield the children from the pain of recounting their experiences. Tanya fought back tears as she watched Zoe struggle to find words to describe Sarah's cruelty. Caleb, usually so energetic, sat motionless in his chair, his voice barely above a whisper as he answered the attorney's gentle questions. Rachel explained their legal approach, which would address both the physical abuse and the racial elements of Sarah's actions. "We'll present evidence of the sustained pattern of mistreatment," she said, "and argue that the racist language Sarah used constitutes a hate crime, which could lead to enhanced sentencing if she's convicted." As the trial date loomed closer, Marcus and Tanya's anxiety about testifying intensified. They spent hours practicing their statements, trying to anticipate the defense attorney's questions. Marcus paced their living room late into the night, rehearsing his answers. Tanya found herself second-guessing every detail, terrified that a small mistake could jeopardize the case. Moments of doubt crept in as the family prepared for court. "What if the jury doesn't believe us?" Tanya whispered one night, her fears spilling out in the darkness. Marcus held her close, his own voice tight with emotion. "We have the truth on our side," he reassured her, even as his own doubts gnawed at him. Their support system proved invaluable during this time. Friends took turns watching Zoe and Caleb during legal meetings. Tanya's sister flew in from out of state to help manage the household. Their therapist, Dr. Foster, provided coping strategies for managing the stress and preparing the children for the trial's emotional impact. In the final days before the trial, a flurry of legal activity unfolded. The defense made a last-minute plea offer, which Rachel presented to the Williams family. After intense discussion, they decided to proceed to trial, determined to see justice served in full view of the public. As the eve of the trial arrived, the Williams family gathered in their living room, a quiet resolve settling over them. They had been through so much already, but the true test still lay ahead. With joined hands and steely determination, they prepared to face whatever challenges the courtroom might bring, united in their quest for justice and healing. Courtrooms are designed to be impartial spaces, but on that first morning of the trial, the air crackled with tension. As Sarah was led in, her eyes met those of the Williams family. In that fleeting moment, a silent battle of wills began that would shape the entire proceedings. Marcus and Tanya sat rigidly in the front row, their faces set in grim determination. Zoe and Caleb were mercifully absent, spared from facing their tormentor again. As Sarah took her seat at the defense table, Tanya gripped Marcus's hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. The prosecutor, Rachel Patel, delivered a powerful opening statement. She painted a vivid picture of the trust the Williams family had placed in Sarah and how brutally that trust had been betrayed. Rachel promised to show irrefutable evidence of Sarah's abuse, emphasizing the racial elements that elevated the charges to hate crimes. The defense attorney countered with a strategy of deflection and doubt. He suggested the Williams had misinterpreted normal disciplinary actions and that cultural differences had led to misunderstandings. His implication that the family's race had colored their perception of events drew audible gasps from the gallery. Expert witnesses took the stand, providing context for the psychological impact of Sarah's actions. A child psychologist detailed the trauma responses exhibited by Zoe and Caleb, explaining how the abuse had fundamentally altered their sense of safety and trust. A cultural anthropologist testified about the historical context of the racial slurs Sarah had used, highlighting their deeply harmful nature. The courtroom fell silent as the video evidence was presented. The raw footage of Sarah's abuse left many in tears. Marcus had to leave the room during one particularly brutal scene, unable to bear watching his children suffer. Tanya sat stone-faced, her eyes never leaving Sarah. Throughout the proceedings, Sarah maintained a mask of calm indifference. She whispered occasionally to her attorney but showed no visible reaction to the damning evidence against her. Her composure only slipped once, when a video clip captured her using a racial slur. A fleeting smirk crossed her face, quickly suppressed but not before several jurors noticed. As the first day of the trial neared its end, Rachel called her final witness, a linguistic expert who would analyze the racial components of Sarah's verbal abuse. Just as the witness was about to be sworn in, Sarah's attorney jumped to his feet, objecting vehemently. Your Honor, he proclaimed, I have new evidence that will change everything about this case. The judge's gavel came down, silencing the sudden murmurs in the courtroom. What bombshell was about to be dropped? The defense's surprise move sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Yet as the final arguments approached, a far greater shock awaited, one that would challenge everything the jury thought they knew about justice, race, and the power of a family's love. The courtroom buzzed with tension on the final day of the trial. Rachel Patel delivered a passionate closing argument, methodically recounting the mountain of evidence against Sarah Thompson. She reminded the jury of the video footage, expert testimony, and the lasting trauma inflicted on Zoe and Caleb. The defense, in a last-ditch effort, attempted to sow seeds of doubt, suggesting cultural misunderstandings and exaggerated claims. As the jury filed out to begin deliberations, Marcus and Tanya clung to each other, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them. Hours ticked by, each moment stretching into an eternity. The Williams family paced the courthouse halls, alternating between hushed conversations and tense silence. After what felt like days, but was in reality just over 5 hours, the jury returned. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read, guilty on all counts, including the enhanced charges of hate crimes. A collective exhale swept through the room. Tanya buried her face in Marcus's shoulder, her body shaking with sobs of relief. Marcus stood still, tears streaming down his face as the full impact of the verdict washed over him. Sarah Thompson's composure finally cracked. Her face contorted in anger as she turned to glare at the Williams family. The bailiff quickly stepped between them, but not before Marcus and Tanya saw the full extent of the hatred that had driven her actions. The judge's voice cut through the emotional aftermath, his tone stern as he addressed Sarah directly. He spoke of the egregious breach of trust, the lasting impact of her actions on the children, and the racial animus that elevated her crimes. The judge emphasized the need to send a clear message that such behavior would not be tolerated in their community or any other. Sarah Thompson was sentenced to 8 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 5 years. Additional conditions included mandatory counseling, a lifetime ban from working with children, and restitution to the Williams family for therapy costs. As the courtroom emptied, Marcus and Tanya remained in their seats, the reality of the verdict slowly sinking in. They had faced their children's abuser and emerged victorious. The road to healing stretched out before them, but for the first time in months, they felt a genuine sense of hope. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by supportive friends and neighbors, the Williams family embraced. Their ordeal was far from over, but justice had been served. As they walked away from the stark walls of the courthouse, they carried with them a renewed faith in the power of truth and the strength of their family bond. The gavel had fallen, but echoes of trauma still reverberated through the Williams household. How does a family rebuild when the very notion of safety has been shattered? The answer would surprise even them. In the weeks following Sarah Thompson's conviction, the Williams family found themselves navigating a new normal. Their days were punctuated by therapy appointments, both individual and family sessions. Dr. Foster's office became a sanctuary where Zoe and Caleb continued to process their experiences through art and play therapy. Slowly, signs of progress emerged. Zoe's nightmares became less frequent, and Caleb's angry outbursts diminished. At home, Marcus and Tanya worked tirelessly to rebuild a sense of security. They implemented new routines and rituals, creating a predictable environment that helped soothe their children's lingering anxieties. Family movie nights, once a source of tension, gradually became moments of genuine connection. The simple act of cuddling on the couch, free from fear, felt like a hard-won victory. As the family healed, they discovered an unexpected source of strength in sharing their story. Marcus and Tanya began speaking at local community centers, offering insights to other parents about recognizing signs of abuse and the importance of trusting their instincts. Their experiences resonated deeply, inspiring others to come forward with their own stories. This newfound advocacy extended beyond childcare safety. The racial component of Sarah's abuse had opened their eyes to broader issues of systemic racism. Tanya joined a local task force focused on promoting diversity in early childhood education, while Marcus volunteered with a mentoring program for at-risk youth. The impact of their ordeal left an indelible mark on each family member. Zoe, once withdrawn, found her voice through art, creating powerful pieces that spoke to themes of resilience and hope. Caleb's protective instincts blossomed. He became known at school for standing up to bullies and befriending isolated classmates. Marcus and Tanya's bond deepened, their shared trauma forging an unbreakable connection. As months passed, moments of joy began to outweigh the painful memories. Laughter, once a rarity, echoed through their home with increasing frequency. The Williams family emerged from their ordeal not unscathed, but undeniably stronger. Their journey of healing was far from over, but with each passing day, they proved that love and resilience could triumph over even the darkest of experiences. As the Williams family's story unfolded, it became clear that the warning signs of abuse had been present from the beginning. Subtle changes in their children's behavior, like Zoe's sudden withdrawal and Caleb's nightmares, were early indicators that something was amiss. The children's reluctance to be left alone with Sarah and their vague responses when questioned should have raised more alarm bells. Experts now emphasized the importance of thorough background checks and ongoing monitoring of childcare providers. Dr. Emily Chen, a child psychologist, recommends regular check-ins with children about their experiences and feelings towards their caregiver. Create an environment where children feel safe to share, even if it's something they think might get them in trouble, she advises. The case has sparked significant changes in local childcare practices. Many agencies now require more frequent home visits and surprise inspections. Some have implemented anonymous reporting systems for families to share concerns without fear of reprisal. The Williams experience has underscored the critical need for open, honest communication between parents and children. Community initiatives for abuse prevention have flourished in the wake of the trial. The local YMCA now offers free workshops on recognizing signs of abuse, while several churches have started support groups for families affected by childcare-related trauma. These efforts aim to create a network of vigilant, informed community members who can help prevent future incidents. The racial component of Sarah's abuse has sparked important conversations about systemic racism in childcare settings. Diversity training has become mandatory for licensed providers in the area, and a task force has been established to address racial bias in early childhood education. The ripple effects of the Williams story have reached far beyond their immediate community. Families across the country have been inspired to reassess their childcare situations and have more open dialogues with their children. Support groups for parents of abused children have reported an increase in attendance, as more people feel empowered to seek help and share their experiences. While the road to healing continues for the Williams family and others like them, their courage has paved the way for safer childcare practices and more aware communities. The message is clear: vigilance, open communication, and a willingness to act on instincts are crucial in protecting children. As Marcus Williams often says in his community talks, trust your gut, listen to your kids, and never be afraid to speak up. Our children's safety depends on it. Marcus Williams' words echoed through the community, but what happened next? 1 year after the trial that shook their world, the Williams family faced a new reality. How does a family rebuild after enduring such trauma, and what unexpected strengths can emerge from the ashes of betrayal? The Williams' living room, once a space of tension and fear, now buzzed with laughter and warmth. Zoe, her confidence restored, proudly showed off her latest art project, a vibrant mural depicting her family surrounded by a protective circle of friends and supporters. Caleb, no longer plagued by nightmares, excitedly recounted his recent victory in a school chess tournament. The change in the children was remarkable, a testament to their resilience and the unwavering support of their parents. Marcus and Tanya had undergone their own transformation. The ordeal had strengthened their bond, forging a partnership built on trust and shared purpose. They now channeled their energy into helping other families navigate the complex aftermath of abuse. Tanya led a support group for parents, while Marcus volunteered as a court advocate for children in similar situations. Their healing journey was evident in small, powerful moments. During a family picnic in the park, Tanya watched with tears in her eyes as Zoe fearlessly approached a group of children to join their game. Caleb, once hesitant to speak up, now confidently raised his hand in class to answer questions. These instances of growth, once taken for granted, were now celebrated as victories. The Williams family moved forward with purpose, honoring their past while refusing to be defined by it. They established an annual community event focused on child safety and cultural understanding. Local schools invited them to speak about recognizing signs of abuse and the importance of open communication between parents and children. Their hopes for the future extended beyond their immediate family. Marcus and Tanya dreamed of a world where no child would suffer in silence, where communities would stand united against abuse in all its forms. They continued their advocacy work, pushing for stronger background check requirements for childcare providers and increased funding for child protection services. The impact of their story rippled through the community. Neighbors who had once viewed childcare as a private matter now understood the importance of collective vigilance. Local businesses displayed child safety information, and schools implemented new programs to empower children to speak up about their experiences. As the sun set on another day, the Williams family gathered around their dinner table. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and plans for the future. While the scars of their past remained, they no longer defined them. Instead, they served as a reminder of their strength and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. In the face of unimaginable darkness, the Williams family had not only survived but emerged as a beacon of hope for others, proving that with courage, support, and unwavering determination, it is possible to write a new chapter filled with light and possibility. The Williams family's harrowing experience offers crucial lessons about child safety and the importance of community vigilance. Their story highlights the need for thorough vetting of caregivers, open communication with children, and trusting parental instincts. It also underscores how racism can intersect with abuse in insidious ways. For those concerned about potential abuse, resources like the National Child Abuse Hotline 1-800-422-4453 and local child protective services are available. Online tools from organizations like Child Help provide education on recognizing signs of abuse. That we all have a role to play in protecting children. Stay alert, listen to children, and don't hesitate to report suspicions. By working together and staying informed, we can create safer communities for all families.